From the moment of the first films over 100 years ago, we have been hooked. We took storytelling from around the fire all the way up to a big silver screen, and our lives have never been the same. Every year, we add more and more voices to those screens, and hopefully a little more visibility for all of us. As that golden night of Hollywood fast approaches, I thought maybe I should sit down with my friend and film critic, Nathan Box, to talk about the hits and the misses of that golden statue. Maybe we'll give you some tips on some movies you're not gonna wanna miss. Hey Nathan.
Hey buddy, how's it going?
Amazing, are you ready to do this?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Let's talk film. Here we come. Nathan, welcome. Thank you for doing this. I love when we get to sit down. Last year, we actually did a live show.
Absolutely, and that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and I thought, how can I torture Nathan more this year? And I thought, let's go to Seattle, and we'll shoot a show.
Anything that keeps me from driving to Spokane is a great thing.
Yeah, it was not too good for you last year. Let's start with, I want people to understand, where did it begin? You have a love affair with film.
I do. When I was a little kid, my brothers and I would rent movies on Friday night. That was sort of our ritual. And there's sort of two seminal films that I fell in love with as a young kid. One is the original Ghostbusters movie.
Oh, I love that.
And then a Kevin Costner movie called Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Now,
wait, that was one of your seminal
Yeah,
movies.
I mean, that's when I sort of fell in love. I knew I liked movies more than just a sort of storytelling art form. Now, when I started getting really serious and realizing that this medium can do some really interesting things, David Fincher's Seven is a film that sort of changed things for me.
It's a rough film because it's so good, but wow, it's hard.
It's extremely dark, and it was so different than anything that I'd watched before that. There's a foreign film out of Brazil called City of God that sort of opened me up to the entire world of film, and at that point in time, I get to college and start, getting to make my own choices about what I'm watching.
When did the moment? So I like to tell people about what it's like to go to a film with you.
Yeah.
You take it, you enjoy the film, but you're very serious about it because you want to discuss it, which is my favorite part about watching a film with you. But you take a little notebook, you got your little pencil, and you are there for every moment of what's happening on that screen, good, bad, or otherwise. When did that problem start happening, and when did you get therapy for it?
So early 2010, 2011, I started, taking a notebook, and I decided that I wanted to not just be a passive viewer of film, but I really wanted to think critically about what I was watching. And no therapy will fix this.
Yeah, I honestly think I lived with you. I know this is not going to happen. How many movies do you think you've seen in your life right now?
In theaters, I've seen 1,100 plus, and then probably total in my life, I've seen 2,000 to 3,000 movies.
I have to tell you, every day I'm shocked that you have a relationship.
Well, I think the joy of our relationship is we both have these hobbies that we are obsessed with. My partner is a pretty accomplished jazz pianist, and I love the world of cinema. And I think that sort of those spaces where our hobbies can intersect is really interesting.
Now, if you could look back and tell yourself what your big why, because obviously a passion like this, there's a reason it exists in you. Why is it that you have to keep watching movies?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my brothers, and I've thought about this a lot. When we were little kids, we would, go outside and play in the backyard. And one of the things that we used to do was we would pretend that we were making movies. And we would take the characters that we watched on screen, and we would sort of act out these little plays, and we would do parts and all of this stuff. And that's one of my fondest childhood memories. It made me fall in love with this form of storytelling. And I have gotten to a point in my life that I'm really obsessed with it.
And I think that's what makes you the perfect guest every year when we get to the Oscars. And so I'm thinking maybe we should delve into the ballot itself and to some films that people might want to hear about, and maybe they haven't seen it. So I say we go have a little seat and chat it up.
Absolutely.
Welcome back. I hope you're as excited as we are to get into the movies. And to start that, I want to talk about the Oscar ballots. Everybody remember, you can go and actually download a copy of the Oscar ballot so you can see everything that's being... And we make it a game where I always make you pick, and then we see how close he is. But Nathan's so good, you always pick who you think should have been there, who you think the Oscars are going to. So why don't we start with who did you think the biggest misses that they had this year were?
Well, I think All of Us Strangers is probably across the board a miss, particularly Andrew Scott's performance. He anchors every scene. He's in every scene of that movie. It is such an emotional powerhouse. To not nominate him feels a bit disrespectful to that film and its story. Agreed.
And I have to say, so I don't think it's important like we think in the society today that we need to know them beyond their character. But I have to say, watching him with his co-star out and about doing their chemistry is not only true on film, it's true together. And it makes it even more enjoyable knowing that. But I'm right there with you. Even the writer, Andrew Hay, who wrote this movie, there are just so many pieces that I agree with you. I think the Oscars mess that up.
Yeah, to be completely blanked is... it was baffling to me on Oscar morning when the nominations were announced.
Yeah.
I was really pulling for this film. It's probably my second favorite film of the year, and just to get nothing sort of blew me away.
Well, for people who don't understand, there's a whole thing that goes on behind the scenes. What do you think it is about the movie that didn't pull it in? Was it there were too many other movies? Was it maybe someone didn't want to talk about the subject matter? What do you think it was?
I think it was a really competitive year. I think if that movie would have came out last year, it would have been nominated. There's a couple of spots in the top 10 that it could have taken. But this was just an incredibly competitive year. And so somebody somewhere is going to get left out.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. I always tell people, don't wait for the awards because there are so many amazing movies in a year that aren't going to be mentioned that are still worth going out and seeing. That's one of the movies for me that is. Go out and see it. Doesn't matter if Oscars said, hey, you're on it. It's getting other awards. It's just not America's big night at the Academy. So on that note, who do you predict is going to be the biggest winner on Academy night?
I think Oppenheimer is going to clean up in a lot of categories. If I was a betting man right now, Oppenheimer is who wins Best Picture. It is my pick for Best Picture. And I think Christopher Nolan will finally win Best Director.
And don't you think, I feel like you can if you watch, there are nods to it that you can feel what is coming. Who do you think could be an upset in Best Picture? That it would be out of nowhere, but you could see that might be happening.
Well, I don't think there'll be an upset. If there is one, I do think it might be Martin Scorsese's film, The Killers of the Flower Moon. I think there's probably a lot of goodwill built up around this director. We don't know how many more Scorsese films we are going to get. The man is in his 80s. So if there was one upset, I think it would be that film.
And also, as you know, they expanded a few years ago how many nominations go into Best Picture. It's not just the typical 5 that we see a lot of. It's up to 8?
It's 10 now.
It's 10. So there's a lot of movies in that. What do you think? Have we ever had this many foreign films? And I love foreign films. I don't mind subtitles by any means. I feel like maybe there's more this year than there has been in the past.
Yeah, I think Parasite changed the conversation about foreign films. In the 93 years of the Academy when Parasite won, 93, 92 years, whatever it was.
Right.
When Parasite finally sort of broke through and we had a foreign film win Best Picture, I think that changed the conversation. People should absolutely not be afraid of subtitles.
No, it's okay. And there's some great movies out there.
It's okay to read and watch at the same time. I promise you won't be hurt or challenged in any real way.
And it's good not to just have English. I love English movies. You can cast me if you want. But yeah, there needs to be more. We need to broaden our horizons.
It's a gigantic world of cinema, and I just think about all the stuff, all the films that we haven't gotten to see because we have such a narrow sort of view of film.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, Bollywood puts out almost twice the number of films that Hollywood does. China is an emerging market for film, and that's to say nothing of the European market. So there's a lot of cinema that we're missing, but I think one of the joys of both the theatrical experience and the in-home experiences, for the first time in our lives, we have access to all of this, and there's really no excuse not to see it.
And there's nothing like good art, and I love that about good film. That's what it is. Let's talk about what, for me, is my pick. It won't be the one that takes all the Oscars, but my pick for my favorite movie of last year is Barbie. This is a movie I didn't want to see because I don't think I understood what it was going to be. And then I watched it, and I was like, I can't believe I didn't watch this sooner. There's a lot of controversy over it. Greta Gerwig isn't getting nominated for director. I do believe she deserved it, but there's a lot going on. Like you said, it's a very competitive year. What was your take of Barbie?
I didn't know what to make of the concept when it was announced. This is it is a doll. How are they going to make this into a feature-length film that people would want to see, and it wouldn't feel sort of derivative?
Yes.
And I think what they beautifully did, Greta and her writing partner and husband, Noah Baumbach, did was quite possibly for the first time, we got a true sort of analyzation, a deep look at what the patriarchy means and how it affects people. I think America Ferrera's monologue in this movie is
amazing.
It is beyond powerful, and it is so well written, and I think it encapsulates the struggle that women have been experiencing since the dawn of time.
Yeah, and I thought what took me back was, first of all, I didn't want to see it because I thought it's a movie about a doll, because I didn't understand. And then I see it, and I see that it's about so much more. It's almost like the evolution of Me Too is this, let's continue this conversation, let's talk about the patriarchy, but it is done, the writing is so nuanced that not once, as this white guy watching the movie, did I feel like they were trying to destroy me, but they were trying to say, I need you to see this. I need you to see what's going on in Hollywood and the world and how it works. And it was so well done that I heard the message. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and beyond the message, I think there's lots of things the film does really, really well. Its production design is so over the top, but so well done. You do feel as if you were in like Barbie's dreamland. Right. And I mean, there is just pink on everything. And it's sort of beautiful to watch. And I'm glad the film got made. I'm glad it got made in the way that it did. Yeah. I hope Hollywood doesn't do this thing that it wants to do, which is, make a bunch of sequels to this thing, because I think that will water down its message.
I think a movie like this, it would
or we
hurt
we get a bunch of different versions of. Yeah. They start digging through the Mattel world, and we're also got this, My Little Pony movie. I don't think we want that.
We don't need that in our lives. Thank you for playing. I agree with you, and especially because the message is so sure and so big. I agree. I don't know if there's... Listen, we got to solve this issue before we have a sequel. I love the cast. I love that Rhea Perlman plays the mother of the Barbies. I love all of this. So why don't we let you guys look at the previews? The preview, I need to say, does no justice. You have no idea the depth of this movie. But let's let you see the preview, and I definitely encourage you. I want to watch this movie again. You say the experience is different depending on where you're watching it. And so I'm very curious to see how I feel that. I'm thrilled for the Oscars. I'm glad for everyone who's nominated. I wish Greta Gerwig was one of them, at least for director. But I think it's a good movie. But let's talk about the one that for some reason Hollywood has put up against Barbie, and they have nothing to do with each other except that they came out the same time. Let's talk about who you think is going to sweep the night, which is Oppenheimer.
Yeah, Oppenheimer is, first of all, I think it's some of Christopher Nolan's best directing. I think it's some of Christopher Nolan's best writing. And I think it takes a very dense subject like the Manhattan Project. Yeah. And we get what I think is one of the best biopics that's ever been made. And I say that because the story is told from two different perspectives. It is subjective and it is objective. We were watching Cillian Murphy, Robert Oppenheimer sort of push this project forward, and he is sort of the main driver of the story. And then when we are in sort of this black and white perspective, we are watching things happen to him. Yeah. And to see these two stories being told it the same way, I think is a really interesting choice. I think it's interesting to have this sort of exalted hero who helps us end World War II. Yeah. And we can have a long conversation about the way in which we ended that war. Right. But then to have sort of this American fallout where we start to try to tear down this person and start accusing him of communist ties or whatever it might be, that was fascinating for me to watch as a viewer.
It's very human. It's telling this person, you saved the world, and then saying, and we hate you. What's fascinating is to watch the human aspect of it by telling it. I will say, I watched this movie. He did such a good job by making it a story. It wasn't a biopic that was just boring in that it's delivering history. He gave it humanity. And so 3 hours did not feel like 3 hours when I watched it.
No, it's a quick 3 hours, and I mean, it is a lot of dialogue. And there's a lot of dialogue leading up to the moment where we finally see if the bomb will work or not. Yeah. But when we finally realize that this thing that they have created will work, the devastation that it is about to unleash. Yeah. And there is a moment in this film that I will think about forever and ever. Cillian Murphy is in the gymnasium, and people stand up and they are clapping for the millions of people who have died. Yeah. It is an astonishing thing to see, and the way that Nolan shoots that scene is why I think he will win Best Director.
That's amazing. What do you think about Cillian Murphy? Do you think he'll pull in the Oscar?
Yeah, I think Cillian Murphy is probably your Best Actor choice. It is a subdued performance that rises up to meet the need of each scene. People are playing off of him. There is, in the latter half of the scene, they bounce back to it the movie, they bounce back to it several times. But when he is being interrogated about his possible communist ties, I think he wins the Oscar in that scene.
It is brilliant. The turmoil after the fact, I think, is an angle of this movie, of this story, that we didn't have before. I'd say Robert Downey Jr. is up for supporting actor, and he came out and said, I would prefer that you put Margot Robbie from Barbie as a nominee because she should have been nominated. And I thought, first of all, class. Second of all, I think that also, the cast is crazy phenomenal. And the list just keeps, and that talks a lot to him as a writer and a director, that these people all signed on and wanted to tell this story. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's phenomenal casting top to bottom.
I have to say, this next movie that I'm going to start by letting you see a preview for it is one that surprised me. I didn't know I was going to like it as much as I did. It's part in Korean, part in English. It's called Past Lives. And why don't you look at it really quick, this preview, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so like every preview, I think there needs to be an Oscar section for just people who put previews together, because sometimes it tells the story without giving too much away, and it's absolutely brilliant. This story, like I said before, kind of took me off guard. I wanted to see it. There is a moment in this film near the end where there's a line that says, I understand who you are, you're the one that leaves. And in that moment, I thought, oh, I love this movie. Love this movie. It is so well done. Like we were talking before we came back on camera, it is the directorial debut of Celine Song, and you were saying it's partly her story, but to me, it was brilliant. What was your take when you saw it?
I got to see this movie with a fully packed theater here in Seattle at the Paramount. It was the opening night film for the Seattle International Film Festival. The director was present, and we got to sort of hear her story of coming to create this movie. Absolutely 100% floored that this is her directorial debut.
Oh my gosh.
It's sort of a stunning piece of cinema.
Yeah.
There are a couple of scenes in this movie that I absolutely will never forget. There's one scene where the three of them are at the bar.
Yeah.
The current boyfriend, the American boyfriend, is setting off to the side while these two childhood friends who had the opportunity to come together and be partners, but it never worked out, are having a really intense conversation, most of it in Korean. So there's like this third wheel there that I will never forget that scene. Yeah. And then the way it ends, which I won't spoil, but the way it ends is devastating. But not devastating in a way that something like All of Us Strangers is. It is quietly devastating.
And it is not that there's lack of hope there, but it is this... You know, what I love about this movie is it's talking about a big question in our lives. Everybody, I think, has had a moment where they think, what about love? What about destiny? Where do these things... What would happen if you got to kind of revisit something from your past and wonder what would happen if you took that path? It is part of your soul. And to see these people struggle with this very real question, and then, like we said, we won't tell you what comes out, but to then find your answer. An answer is not necessarily good or bad. It just is.
Yeah, you know, All the Strangers has us go back and have our main character sort of come out to his parents to have his parents see who he has become. Yeah. This movie does sort of the same thing, but in a different way, which is it has us have our main character look at what her life could have become if things had worked out differently.
Exactly. Which is something I think everybody as a human, has that moment, whether you're 60, whether you're 80, that you just wonder if I would have taken that. So I think that's what I love about it. It's that piece that says, we've been here. Now let us show you what we look at here. I think that's amazing. It's worth it. Like I said, we were talking earlier, foreign films, open yourself up to them. There are things... I loved having to be in the English and then having to read the Korean. There's so much given because it's so much part of the culture they came from that it adds another level to a movie like this.
Yeah, it does require you to have a sort of understanding of what Korean or Asian culture, how it might impact the characters who are leading this film, and then what happens when you immigrate to another country.
Exactly. I would say go out and see it. Past Lives, it's absolutely amazing. You can rent it currently. So you can just sit at home, have a little cocktail, watch the movie. Let's talk about a very hard movie. I wasn't going to watch this movie. Also a foreign film. This is a German film. Wasn't going to watch it, and you said, well, I want us to show the preview and talk about this film. I trust Nathan, which is probably my first mistake. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to suck it up and do this. So really quick, let's show you the preview for a movie that's up for Best Picture this year. It's called The Zone of Interest. It's hard to tell what this movie is by that preview. Like, I would watch preview and I'm like, okay, I can watch it. It's about a very difficult subject matter. Tell us how you came across it. Was it the first time you'd heard of it when you saw the nominations, and then your experience with this movie?
Yeah, there were two films that were sort of hard to find before the nominations came out. We've alluded to All of Us Strangers. Yeah. The other one is The Zone of Interest. It's a Jonathan Glazer film. Jonathan Glazer loves doing sort of like this documentary style film. If I was to pick anyone to give Christopher Nolan a run at Best Director, it would be Jonathan Glazer. If I was to pick another film to challenge Oppenheimer, and this is me personally, it would be The Zone of Interest. The way to think about this film is if you took the TV show Big Brother, and you were a fly on the wall, and you were getting to see the daily lives of a Nazi officer that happens to be in charge of Auschwitz. Yeah. And on the other side of the wall of their family compound, the atrocities of World War II are being carried out. And we are seeing the devastation. The entire film, the smokestacks where people are being cremated are running. Yeah. But we never, ever, ever see the atrocities as they play out. The director is trusting us to have an adult understanding of what is happening on the other side of those walls. And I think what is interesting and where this movie finds its emotional weight is that these people are just living their lives.
Yeah.
They are having dinner. They are having friends over. They are hanging out by the pool. Yeah. They are doing
not even striking their mind what this craziness around them. Yeah, they're just
doing
living
a job.
Yeah.
It is just a job to them.
Yeah.
The horror that is happening on that other side of that wall is just a job.
That was the hardest thing for me to, I think, get through. Like, the movie is so well made, but I don't think I'd ever thought about it from that perspective. There's a scene where the mother comes in, and we don't see her long, because that night the sky is lit up by those furnaces, those crematoriums, those things. And you can see it on her face, that realization that this is where you live with your family, and this is going on. And even though earlier it seems like she's part of all, she can't deal with it. It's an amazing movie. It's based on a book that it just took it in a different direction. But so this is hard for me because I really think, like you were saying, I mean, best director could be right in there. It's what has been told in this movie. Like they say, it's a groundbreaking film, and I really think that they're right. Is it hard to watch? It certainly is, but it's truth.
Yeah, and it's hard to watch in the same way that, like, Schindler's List is hard to watch.
Yeah.
What makes this movie different is Schindler's List shows you the atrocities, and it shows you what it meant to be Jewish at that time.
Yeah.
This is a completely different thing. This is from the German officer's perspective, and he's running Auschwitz so well that he's been pulled back to Berlin to have a conversation about how do we systematize this and have it go across the entire continent.
Exactly.
It's
so weird. It's so weird to sit there and go, you mean these conversations were happening?
In the room where evil happened.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then after they end the movie, and you can see, they want you to see the truth of Auschwitz, of what it is now, and it's a really important film. So I have to say, listen, sometimes we have to watch history and we have to watch truth because you will get something from it, that it's not all about just, go have fun and watch Barbie, which I respect Barbie, but it's an important film that needs to be seen.
I think, and the movies that really matter to me, the ones that make a lasting difference, are ones that do something to me differently, emotionally.
Exactly.
And this movie left me with a very disgusted feeling I was sitting here watching this all play out, and that's an important feeling to hold on to.
Exactly. And that's the power of film for me. That's why I love that art form, is all the different ways you can tell important stories. And I think that's amazing. Now, keep in mind, as we get ready for our queer film segment, I do want to encourage everybody. We will have the Academy Award ballot available for you. Go look at all. There's so many more movies that are in the Best Picture category. Holdovers, Paul Giamatti. It's actually an excellent movie. It's in there. There's Anatomy of a Fall, which has the same leading actress as The Zone of Interest, Sandra Hüller. Brilliant.
Yeah, Anatomy of a Fall has one of the best courtroom scenes I've ever seen.
Oh my God, yeah, it is. Great movies out there. I encourage, go look at the movies that are there. Go become a filmmaker. I'm surprised Nathan hasn't made a film yet, to be very honest. These are the important things. This is why we do it. But I thought we can maybe change the pressure a bit. Maybe talk queer film, have a little cocktail, and see what you guys think about those. So thank you for continuing to watch. Ask us any questions you need to ask us. But I say we go have a drink.
Absolutely.
Welcome back. We're in a whole new space with liquor in front of us, so it's got to be a good thing. One of the things I always tell a story about us is, so Nathan and I knew each other in the LA days when we were both down there. We became roommates out of necessity in North Hollywood, especially for me because I was losing my roommates. And every Sunday, Nathan has a tradition. So what's your tradition on Sundays?
Yeah, so I typically go to the movies on Sunday and then come home, make a cocktail, make dinner, and put on a vinyl record and sort of relax and ease into my week.
I blame you because of that experience. I bought a record player when I moved up to Washington. I buy vinyl like there's no tomorrow, and I listen to it. I don't do the alcohol part because I'm not that good at anything that requires like reading something other than scripts. So you do this great thing of you have a different cocktail every Sunday, and we talked and thought, well, when we talk about queer films from this past year, let's make a drink based on those films. So Nathan is going to do that, and we're going to talk about the amazing film, All of Us Strangers. Talk about movies that I mentioned earlier that you need to go see, or you need to rent, you need to buy. This is one of those movies.
All of Us Strangers is absolutely one of my favorite films of the year. It is streaming on Hulu, and
you can buy it because I just bought it.
Yeah, I absolutely recommend everyone see it. It just centers around 4 characters. Andrew Scott is the lead character, Paul Mescal in a supporting role. But it's a really intense movie to talk about without spoiling anything.
Yeah.
But I think one of the important things is to keep in mind as you're watching this film is, what if you could go back in time and have a conversation with someone that you've lost?
Yeah.
And what would you say? How would you show them who you've become as an adult? How would you let them know that you turned out okay? And that's the basis for this film, and it really turns into something that's really emotionally powerful, but really beautiful to
It also has
behold.
Claire Foy in it, of course, from The Crown days when that first started. And it has Jamie Bell, and they are also brilliant in this movie. It didn't get an Oscar nod.
Yeah,
it's a miss on my books.
It did not do great at the Oscars, and it didn't do great at BAFTA either, where I thought it should do really well, because it's based in London, has English and an Irish actor in it. I thought it would have done really well there, and it sort of got snubbed. If you were to ask me, Nathan, what was your biggest snub of the year, I think it's this film.
Yeah, I mean, it's based on a book. The book did really well, which is why it was adapted to a screenplay. It's a queer movie, and although we've talked Oscars for all sorts, which is great, we love the art form, I think it's important to celebrate our queer filmmakers and those queer stories. So while we let you all watch an amazing preview for this movie that hopefully makes you want to go watch it, we're going to put together a cocktail and we're going to tell you all about it when we come right back. Welcome back. I have to say, I love movie previews. Like, I will show up the hour before an actual movie because I want to see all the previews. That, as we said, is a powerful film. I've told my friends they need to see it, but boy, it's rough. I cried so much in this movie. It's worth it. It's a story, I think, that hasn't been told about gay men and how we deal with the trauma of coming out. We don't tell this story, and we're finally talking about it. So I'm very curious about what you have chosen, what cocktail you have put together for us.
Yeah, so every year at my Oscar party, I sort of build a themed cocktail around one of my favorite films of the year. For you, I've built a recipe called London Bridge, and we're going to do a slight variation of it. I'll have a little soda, but it is all sort of English inspired or the Commonwealth inspired. We've got gin from Scotland, some Saint Germain, got some lemon juice, some cucumber syrup, and a little soda. So we're going to throw this together. It'll be the London Bridge, and I think it is probably the perfect cocktail to have while you're having a good cry watching this movie.
So I have many films I've watched this year because of you that I need this drink.
Yes, many.
In a couple months, I'll be an alcoholic. And that's what's going to happen.
That's really my goal.
Let's make this why we talk about this film. Andrew Scott is obviously, he was in Fleabag. He was the priest we were all lusting after in that movie. I love him and Paul Mescal together. Their chemistry is crazy. I also love that, I don't know if the way Adam Scott approaches the film is it's not about whether he as a person is gay. It's not about, he embraces a story and just becomes that person. This movie is told in a way that I don't think we've seen before.
Yeah, I think it's really bold and brave. It's also very honest about their love story.
Yeah.
And I think it is told in a really authentic way that will defy many stereotypes that people might have about what our relationships might look like. Yeah. I mean, their relationship is expedited. It does happen over
very fast
over a weekend.
That's how I do it.
But it is a beautiful thing to behold.
Yeah, and they take it from those of us who might have relationship issues. Like I mentioned therapy earlier, we should probably people should go to it. It's good for you. But it talks about the I'm closed off, I don't want to connect with you, and then what happens when you begin to open up and you begin to heal from those past traumas. It is amazing. Plus, you get to see some good old skin, and I enjoyed the little lusty part as well.
Yeah, it does have a little something for everyone in it. I mean, they're both beautiful specimens to behold. Gosh, I was just sort of blown away by the tenderness of the moments they do share together.
Yeah. It was beautiful. I want to thank those lovely actors for sharing with us, because we enjoyed it on so many levels. So you've put all of these together, and just so everybody who's watching knows, we will release the recipe for this. So if you want to have this lovely cocktail while you're watching movies, you'll be able to do that as well.
Yeah, it's a simple mixture. We're doing an ounce of gin, a half an ounce of elderflower liqueur, half an ounce of lemon juice, and then we're doing a quarter of an ounce of this cucumber syrup. We're gonna
so we can feel healthy while we drink.
Yeah. It's gonna be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna make some noise. Throw some ice in there.
This is a fun noise.
This is the best part.
Do a little cocktail Tom Cruise thrown in the air.
Yeah, I try not to have Tom Cruise as my hero for anything.
Truth.
So
I'm excited. Look, we get it. Now, while we do this, we're going to drink this and move on to another queer film that got a lot of talk, but did get an Oscar nod, unlike All of Us Strangers. And I have my nifty little note card here. Look, fancy. So Rustin, of course, Coleman Domingo, who plays the activist Bayard Rustin, who worked with, of course, Martin Luther King, was a gay man, a black man, in a time that neither of those were very popular. And it's telling his story in a way that I don't think we've seen before. Dustin Lance Black, he wrote the screenplay for it. Of course, he gave us Milk back in the day and got the Oscar for that. And so they're telling the story. It's shorter than I anticipated, this film. I mean, he did great. He deserves his Oscar nod. But it felt a little lighter than I mean, it was hard, but it was a little lighter than I anticipated it would be.
Yeah, Netflix was sort of all in on biopics this year. They have 3 films sort of nominated, what we call above the line. All 3 of them are biopics. This, Maestro, and Naiad, all sort of center around characters. I think there's some missed opportunities in Rustin. I think the acting is brilliant. I think how he is sort of Rustin is left out of the conversations about the overall civil rights movement is very interesting. I learned a lot watching the movie. I think we all made some assumptions about what went into planning the March on Washington. To see that this black queer man was the one that made it happen with a really solid team around him was interesting. There wasn't a lot of drama to hold on to in this film.
It was they had a great cast. I thought it was a story that we've only, even in the queer community, but overall we've only whispered about. I don't think a lot of us knew the details about Rustin, and to see it was powerful. I feel like maybe people thought, well, it's a big conversation. We don't want to add the gay guy to the conversation, but it was a legit, and his problem was he was louder and larger than life. Wasn't wanting to ever be publicly apologetic for the kind of person he was. So they left him out of the narrative of creating this amazing time in our history. And yet it's a time we need to understand.
Yeah, I think, I'm sort of thinking what it would have been like to have been in that boardroom at the NAACP while they're having those conversations. Rustin was a friend of Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King, of course, was a minister. So there is this dichotomy of, someone who's quote unquote living in sin versus this minister that's leading the civil rights movement. That juxtaposition of who to get involved in that conversation is powerful, and it is powerfully portrayed in this movie.
Very. Well, and he even has Rustin has an affair with a young pastor who is just getting involved. And it does talk about that struggle of religion versus who we are authentically. So it was fascinating to go. I always love Dustin Lance Black, and I know he worked with another writer as well to do this. So it was interesting to see how do you tell such a complicated story in a way that's deliverable to people who want to watch that movie? That is forever the question. But I think for me, a movie like this, a biopic, wasn't about telling the whole story because it didn't feel like that, but it felt like the start of a conversation we can have more publicly than we've allowed ourselves to have.
It does defy some things that tend to be formulaic in the genre of a biopic. You know, we don't get Rustin's origin story or anything like that. That is appreciated. We sort of like delve right into the work.
Yeah.
There's a missing moment that gives you something to latch onto this film that will make you really excited to spend time with these characters.
Yeah. You at least I left the film thinking I did feel like there was something missing. Like I wanted more from this. Not that it wasn't a great film, but it did feel, like I said, it might not have been short, but it felt, because you felt like there was a missing piece. Right. And I think we're afraid to step into that because we don't want to step on a legacy that is very important, like Martin Luther King. But at the same time, this man's story deserves to be told. And he was a part of civil rights history and honestly the history of our country. So it was very interesting. But the lead actor who is getting an Oscar nomination, we're totally thrilled with that, deserves it. But I wish they would have given him more meat. But as queer people, these are still important movies that we need to see and we need to support. So you never know when the story is going to be told differently, you know, and more breadth with.
I think we just need to be celebrating a couple of things. One, that our stories are being told, but
yes,
we have a cocktail ready.
And two, yes, I am so ready. Plus, after all the heavy films we always watch at this time of year with the Academy Awards, sometimes it takes a drink. Because you've watched all movies but 3, correct?
Yeah, I'm down to my last 3 of the 53.
I was saying, we mean all the movies on the ballot, not just the main categories. Nathan goes all in every year.
There's some people who think that short films should not be celebrated, and I absolutely disagree with them. I think short film is where a lot of directors that we know and love get their start. Exactly. And for a long time, the Academy has celebrated that category, and I believe they're absolutely worth being watched.
I love that. So this is the London Bridge.
This is the London Bridge. I topped it with soda, and it's got a little lime and cucumber.
So cheers, my friends.
Cheers.
We love movies. So you guys should make this at home.
You absolutely should. It's delicious.
Oh, you should make this at home. I'm just going to drink it all, and we'll meet you drunk later. And that's what we'll do. I want to end this segment and talk about the queer films that you think maybe got missed and that maybe we all need to make time and go see.
Yeah, unlike last year, I thought it was a really good year for queer cinema. I saw 2 films that centered on the trans community that I thought were phenomenal. I saw them at a film festival, so you may have to do a little research to find them. One's called Monica, another one's called Mutt. Please see these movies. Both lead actors in both films are trans, so we are coming to this from an authentic place. One of my favorite comedies of the year was a film called Theater Camp. I believe it is on Hulu.
So funny.
If you are a theater kid or you're around theater kids, it is every cliche in the world about this community, but it is so funny.
Yeah, and honestly, if you watch it and you were a theater kid, it's true. It's just a lot of truth in this crazy movie.
Another film that I thought was interesting, is definitely got a queer angle to it, is Saltburn.
Oh my God.
Which is sort of like a swim fan of like the London preparatory school scene.
Exactly. It's a Cruel Intentions went really dark and maybe took some acid. That's what this movie is.
But this movie should be seen, and it should be debated. You should watch this with people so you can have a really good conversation about it afterward.
Yes, because it's all about conversation. There's no way. I've been telling everybody when the crew was coming over, I'm like, you need to watch it because I need people to talk about it with. I have to say, without giving anything away, there are some very big scenes that happen in this movie and moments you can't unsee. You know what I mean? Yeah. And worth it. Also, I thought we missed, it should have, the writing. to be able to deliver the subject matter they did. The writing was brilliant, and the lead actor took that writing and made it something beyond what it could ever be, and they both deserved recognition.
Yeah, I'm not gonna take credit for this line, but I think it's brilliant. I think this movie does for bathtubs what Call Me By Your Name does for peaches.
And I think you're right.
I think so. I think so.
And trust us, you need to watch the movie to know what he's talking about. It gets a little spicy.
It is a slurpy scene.
Yes, it is. Well, I love a drink. We're going to go have a little cocktail, and then we're going to come back and wrap it up. Listen, we hope you have had as much fun talking about film as we do. We are film nerds and love every minute of it, breaking down the films and talking about why we love what we see. I hope you've had a good time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I love it, and we had to make more. We had to make more cocktails because it's so fun. So as we end, we hope you've put yourself a little cocktail together and enjoyed this amazing day. Listen, whether you only look at the SAG Awards, whether you only look at the Oscars, the awards don't matter to me as much as the movies that we're talking about. So thank you, Nathan. Until next year.
Cheers.
Cheers.